Hello, this is Gareth Keane. I'm continuing the series of videos on programming in Visual Basic for applications for engineering purposes. The example we're going to look at today is going to use one-dimensional, two-dimensional arrays, and it's also going to look at how we can write the results of a VBA program out onto a spreadsheet using ranges and range properties. To start off, I'll show what the finished product is going to look like. We have the columns of the table running 1, 2, 3 all the way up to 9, and then we have the rows of the table, so they will also run from 1 to 9, and then the multiplication table itself, where the results of multiplication will be stored. So we're looking to produce this with VBA code and then to write it out onto the spreadsheet. So I'm going to do it on this sheet here called multiplication table. So the first thing I have to do is to come over here, and I'm going to have my columns along here. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And what I do is I will call this columns. So I name the range. Now you've done that before in some of the exercises we have done. And here what I'm going to do is come down here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm going to call this rows. Now also I have a table in here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I go down 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, and I call this table. So that's where the results of the multiplication are going to be written to. Okay, so those three names those three ranges named. You can see here I have them boxed off here, but I've no need to do that here so far. So they are now named. So I already have some code done, so I'll look at the code here. And what I first of all do is within the VBA, I dimension a table, a two-dimensional array, which is going to store the results of the multiplication. It's 1 by 9 by 1 by 9. So there'll be 81 elements in it altogether, integers. Then I dimension OR is an integer for the row, and C is an integer for the column. I dimension output string as a string. I'm actually not sure if we use that. And then I come dimension rows as range, columns as range, and table range as range. So these are what are known as range properties. So what I'm going to do is play around with it a bit here just to demonstrate it. So I'm going to put a breakpoint in here, and I'm going to come F8, set rows equal to range rows. That's worked fine. Set columns equal to range columns, and set table equal to range table. Now I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to show you some of the things you can do with range properties. So once I have said that this range object is going to point to the range that we defined as rows outside, if I come here, I go out onto the spreadsheet, you can see there's nothing there. But if I then come here and I go F8, sorry, if I move up here, and I go F8, it doesn't work. Okay, hang on. Now if I get work fine, you can see it's now selected the rows. If I come back up, I can just drag the cursor back up there, and I'll say columns. Select. So I can come down, F8 that. That's fine. I'll just bring it back up, I can do it. And if I come in here, you can see now it's selected that range called columns. If I then come back up here, I'll see if I can do some more stuff with it. I can go rows, interior, and I can put a color on it. And I can say color is equal to VB red. Now if I press F8, it doesn't like that again. I'll come back up here. And you can see there that I've used some VBA code to manipulate the cells on a spreadsheet. I've given the background colour there to be red. Now I'll just get rid of that, though I was just doing that to demonstrate it. I'll use the format painter just to wipe it out like that. Okay, so you can see with these range properties, they're quite powerful. It means you can use VBA code to point to cells on a spreadsheet and you can manipulate them and change them. So I was just doing those for demonstration purposes. I'm now going to just delete them. And I'll continue with the code. So if I come on here, F8, we are now in here, and I'm basically inside this nested loop. And if I print or C and then table or C, you can see that what this loop is going to do is generate the thing like that. Now it's going to generate the multiplication table. You can see OR is equal to 1, C is equal to 1, and 1 times 1 is 1, so that's stored in table 1, 1. Now it's going to process the inner loop, so the row will stay fixed as with a value of 1, but it'll move across the column. So in effect, it's going to start calculating this row, starting here and moving to the right. So it'll calculate the first row by traversing or going across all the columns from 1 to 9. So if I just show that here, I'll press this. Now OR is still 1, the column is 2, and 2 times 1 is 2. I'll just demonstrate it again. OR is still 1, now you're on column 3, and 3 times 1 is 1, and so on. So if I move quickly to the end, which one are we on now? 1, 6, 6, so we're on 6, 7, 8. You can see I'm on 8 there, then I'm on 9. Now it's reached the maximum value. C is now 9. The inner loop goes from 1 to 9, so it's reached its maximum value. So it'll come out of the inner loop and it will increment the outer loop. So OR will now should have a value 2. So if I run that again, you can see now that OR is 2, C has gone back to 1, and 2 times 1 is 2. So now what's happened is it's finished the first row, so the inner loop finishes and then it iterates to the next iteration of the outer row, of the outer loop. So now it's going to work across from left to right, processing the working out the values of the multiplication table for OR equal to 2. And if I just, it's basically going to run its way through the whole program. So I'll just put a breakpoint here and go F5. So you can assume now that a multiplication table is finished. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fill up, we're going to create a multiplication table as shown here. And it's going to write the values out onto this blank sheet. So first thing it's going to write out are the rows. So remember where rows were. If I come up here and just select rows, select, hopefully I'll come up here without any problem, F8, yep. If I come to the spreadsheet, you can see it's selecting this one here. And what this little loop is going to do is going to fill this up with the values 1 to 9. So if we look at it here, OR is equal to 1 first time through loop, therefore rows, cells, OR is equal to 1. So it uses this cells property, and the way that works is if I come out here, I can just I have column A here, and in that I've shown for illustration purposes this cell property can basically treat a range object a bit like an array, where the first cell is the first element of is the first component of the range, the second cell is the second component, and so on. So row cells 1 points to this cell, row cells 2 points to that cell, row cells 3 points to this cell, and so on. It works the same way with the columns, so we can see here in the illustration, column cell 9 refers to that cell there, column cell 1 refers to the first one, and so on. Now, because table refers to a two-dimensional range, you actually have two subscripts, the same as you would with a two-dimensional array. So up here, that will be, that cell there is table cell 1, 1. This is table cell 1, 2, and so on, yeah? So remember, the row is first, the column is second. This is table cell 1, 3. And down here we have table cells 9, 9. So if we see how the code fills up, 11, if I press through it as we run through the code, I'll come back now. We're filling this one up, so it's gone through one iteration of the array. OR is equal to 1, so it's put the value 1 out into the first cell of rows. That's OR is equal to 2, so you can see it fills up the second cell, and so on. So as it goes through the loop, OR takes the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it fills in the appropriate value of OR into the appropriate cell of the range, into the corresponding value cell of the range. So we're as far as 6 now, 7, 8, 9. And you can see it's filled up. The loop is finished, and that range has been filled up with the numbers, or populated with the numbers is the correct terminology. So if I come down now, here I'll just select columns to show where it is. You don't need to do it to make it work, I'm just doing it to illustrate it. We do F8 and go out to the sheet. You can see now we're going to fill this one up with the numbers 1 to 9. So F8. So I pressed it 3 times, so if we go out, you can see it's filled up the first 3 numbers because I went through the loop 3 times by pressing the 8 button 3 times. So 4, 5, 6. You can see it's gone as far as 6, and I'll finish it off now. 5, 6. That should be 9, and it finishes here. So you can see it's populated the range called columns with the numbers 1 to 9. So obviously the next thing is we have filled up an array here, two-dimensional array called table. It's stored in the memory of the computer. We need to put that out onto the spreadsheet. So we're going to populate the range called table range. Remember, we set table range is equal to range table. So it's basically referring to this block of cells there, that range of cells there. And what we're going to do is we're going to populate this range of cells with the corresponding element of the array called tables, which is basically the multiplication table. So as we step through it, we're going to process it row by row. So first time through it, let's see what our values are. I'm going to clean this out here, our immediate window, and I'll just press it here. So OR is equal to 1, C is equal to 1, and the value of table 1, 1 is 1. So after I execute this, you'll see nothing has happened yet, but after I execute it, the first value should go into table range 1, 1, which is there. F8, let's have a look. It's gone in there. So next time through the inner loop, OR still 1, C is now 2, and the value 2 should go into the cells 1, 2 of this table range. So you see it's already done, it's passed it in there. F8. I press F8 a couple of times, and you can see it's now filling up the first row of table range. F8. That should be filled, I think. 1 to go. That's it. You can see it's filled there now. So the inner loop is now finished, so we'll go out to the outer loop. OR now takes the value 2. So C takes the value 1. And you can see now we're processing the second row. We're back to the first column, and we're going to pass that value across to table range. So I press it a few times here, and you can see that I filled up these rows, these columns of the second row. So that's it. You can see that it'll run its way through. I can just finish it off here if I just press F5 to bring it down there. you can see that it's worked. It's run its way through the two-dimensional, the nested loop, and it's populated the range called table range with the values from the array called table, which is basically where we calculated up here. So you can see that's what you need to do to write values to a range out onto a cell. What you need to do is come to the spreadsheet first, name the ranges where your results are going to go, and then you can, in your code, you can write out those ranges. Now the whole range properties are much more flexible. You don't have to know beforehand how many columns you have and how many rows there are. I can cover that in later videos, but basically this is a start and it shows you how to actually output values out. Okay, thank you very much for listening.